Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CS Cyber. I'm Chad.
I'm Sean.
And today we're on episode 8 of Cyber Ready Ohio. And we're talking about really how to manage your third-party IT providers and some compliance regulations with House Bill 96.
Yeah, this is going to happen, right? You're going to have organizations that are smaller, that are, maybe you have an IT person that works for your local government or your organization, and you've partnered with an MSP or an MSSP. There could also be situations where it is all outsourced. So no one is on site. It is all outsourced. So let's talk about this.
Yeah, and I've actually seen that a lot, right? So I've worked with a lot of cities that it's fully outsourced, right? And that consultant may report to like the finance director or somebody that has no IT knowledge, right? So this is going to be new to both the IT consultant and the MSSP or MSP and maybe like the finance director or someone at the city that's not a technologist.
Yeah, this is a really sensitive episode because, obviously we're an MSSP and we are managing a number of these entities. But we have also seen MSPs that get involved with local governments not doing it properly.
Right.
Or in an insecure manner. So let's talk about why this alignment matters. HB 96 makes it very clear that political subdivisions are required for maintaining a cyber program. That means if you have your cybersecurity outsourced, that you are the ultimate. If you were the person that was responsible for finding that MSP or MSSP, you are ultimately responsible for those actions. So there's got to be a process of validating that vendor, going through due diligence, and making sure that they are up to speed with providing services to you, right? So what does that look like from a contractual perspective?
So that's making sure that your MSP is aware of like what framework you're aligning to and how to support you on that. Maybe some rules that you need to put in place on how they're going to access your systems or manage your systems, right? I mean,
right. I think one of the first things that comes to mind is the actual software that the MSP places on all your computers.
You're thinking the team viewers and
we call that in the business, we call it RMM, right? Remote management and monitoring. And there's been a lot of issues with RMM tools that get deployed by an MSP onto a mass amount of computers because what can happen? So a threat actor can use the login to that RMM, and then immediately get access to hundreds or thousands of computers, right?
Right. The MSP or IT consultant they're just stepping stone into larger organizations, right? Like they may not necessarily have anything you want to encrypt, but all their customers have the data.
So I think one of the things, especially if you're a local government and you're going through like maybe an RFP process, request for proposals, that you're being pretty specific about the tools and how they're operated on your network, right? And that you're like one of the most important things is maintaining some type of indicating that the vendor has to maintain some form of multi-factor authentication, meaning your MSP, the actual techs themselves, the people that you're paying, that they're logging into their systems that have access to your stuff with multi-factor authentication. Requiring maybe that a vendor, like for us, we're SOC 2 compliant. You need to be looking for MSPs that have maturity to them, right? That they've gone through some type of alignment with a framework or a control set, like CSF or CIS, those types of things.
And we're talking about this in the context of MSPs, MSSPs, but it's your finance software vendor that's logging in to do updates or support you however they do. It's really having a third party vendor management process, right?
Yeah.
So who's accessing your system, when they should be, that they're aligning with your rules and your regulations.
Yeah, this isn't. I'm not reducing this all the way down to MSP and MSSPs. I know that's that's what we're talking about today. But really, it's any vendor due diligence, right?
Yeah. So assessing your vendor, you kind of talked about things you can look for. Do they have a SOC 2? Is there a framework they align with? It's really really getting back to it. It's that third party vendor management that you should be asking anybody that you do business with, whether it's AWS or Microsoft or your MSP or anybody. Like, what are they doing? What are their security controls and what's their security program look like?
Right, and I'll ask. I was talking to a colleague about CJIS this morning, the Criminal Justice Information Service, which is what police departments all over the United States have to comply with. Are you fingerprinting and background checking your IT providers, right? Your MSP and your MSSPs. I know we have to go through a regular process to make sure that we're trained and that we're compliant with CJIS, and that all of our staff is fingerprinted and background checked. There's a whole process to keeping everybody compliant.
Right. So just some action steps coming out of this episode, right? I mean, so sit down with your MSP or your IT provider, kind of walk through what House Bill 96 means for you and how they may need to support you differently. I would suggest pulling out that contract and really understanding what your MSP IT provider is responsible for, right? I see a lot of misconceptions where, organizations are like, oh, we've outsourced this, and they just think they've outsourced everything. Well, you may have outsourced, some, monthly patching and keeping the lights on, but you haven't outsourced your security program or your network or anything else, right? So in a lot of cases, they've outsourced break fix. And
yeah, exactly. And I think there's a misconception that when somebody says I've outsourced something, that you've somehow also outsourced risk. And that's incorrect. I would say that you may have outsourced the work, but the risk is still on you.
Right. And I think that's a surprise to everybody when that day comes. They're like, oh, well, I thought so-and-so had this, and they didn't. So,
well, just before we end, I just, from an assessing your vendor piece, ask for audit reports, be very specific about what you need them to comply with. I think that's missing. Don't be afraid to make your MSP or your MSSP take training that you've designed, right? If they're accessing your network, that's actually a CJIS requirement, that the vendor, go through some type of security training. Ask for, they should be pen tested. There should be penetration test results. There's just a number of things that I think we have to up the due diligence on to make sure that I'm not trying to put anybody out of business. And, I 10 years ago, I started out with just one person, right? So I understand those risks, but, as you start working with larger organizations just like us, we've had to adopt and bring into certain things into compliance in order to continue to work up that ladder.
Right. So, I mean, in closing, like House Bill 96 doesn't stop at your firewall, right? It extends to everybody that touches your network, works on your network, vendors, all kinds of things. So just be diligent there. Make sure you're doing your vendor assessments and who your vendors are and who's touching your network. So
yeah, sit down and talk with your MSP. Just have an open discussion. Let them know about HP 96 and get them plugged in. Yeah,
so that's all we have for today. In episode 9, we're going to be talking about some free and low-cost solutions and available resources to kind of help you with House Bill 96 because, no one has $1 million to spend on cybersecurity.
If you do, give us a call.
Yeah, if you do, give us a call. But, to that point, right, there's a lot of things just in compliance frameworks. And I tell people this all the time, like, you can change your password length, and that doesn't cost you anything, right? There's a lot of things just like that. So we want to talk about it in the next episode.
Sounds good.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.